Another chapter is related with the perception concept uh, associated with the perception. Um, Perceptual thresholds, I would like to explain first what do you mean by the perceptual threshold. Perceptual threshold is linked with the absolute threshold as the smallest amount of stimulus energy, such as sound or light, that can be observed or experienced. Absolute threshold, the intensity level of stimulus, each such that a person will have a 50% chance of deducting it. This is how we can say that how you absolute is that the chance of hearing a message is 50%, 100%. When moving this to this area, this means that you learned about or you listen about something 100%. Subliminal stimulus is related with the 0 to 49% chance of hearing a message and increasing in intensity as well. Then subliminal stimulus has an intensity that gives a person less than a 50% chance of detecting the stimulus. Perceptual thresholds, according to the Weber, worked on the problem of how we judge whether a stimulus such as loud music has increased or decreased in intensity. Concept of just noticeable difference, JND, refers to the smallest increase or decrease in the intensity of a stimulus that a person is able to deduct. Weber's law is the increase in intensity of a stimulus needed to produce a just noticeable difference grows in proportions to the intensity of the initial stimulus. Sensation, what is the difference between sensation and perception? By sensation we means, I can also explain some of the portion with the other slides as well. uh, Let me share with you the other slide as well related with the sensation. Now you can see here, sensation is basically traditionally the five spatial senses have been defined as taste, smell, uh, sight, hearing, and feeling. However, touch is now considered to reflect the activity of the journal senses, and equilibrium or balance can be thought of as a new fifth spatial sense. In contrast to the journal sensory receptors, most of which are modified of the sensory neurons, dendrites of sensory neurons. The spatial sensory receptors are distinct receptor cells. They are either localized with complex sensory organs such as the eyes and ears, or within epithelial structures such as the taste buds and olfactory epithelium. The principal function of the spatial sensory receptors is to detect environmental stimuli and transfer their energy into electrical impulses. These are then conveyed along sensory neurons to the central nervous system, where they are integrated and processed, and a response is produced. There is no firm agreement amongst neurologists as to exactly how many senses there are. The disagreements stems from a lack of consensus as to what the definition of a sense should be, although it is still routinely thought that there are five senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste. A classification first devised by Aristotle, it is generally agreed that there are at least nine different senses in humans, and a minimum of two more observed in other organisms. So, a broadly acceptable definition of a sense would be a system that consists of a sensory cell type or group of cell types that respond to a specific kind of physical energy and that correspond to a defined region or group of regions within the brain where the signals are received and interpreted. Where disputes arise is with regard to the exact classification of the various cell types and their mapping to region of the brain. It can also be defined as sensation is a process that makes possible and facilitates our contact with reality. To sense means to become aware of something. All living organisms have sense organs. Sensation is the process by which our sense organs respond to different stimuli. It is the mechanism through which stimuli from outside or inside the body are received and felt by different faculties, that is, hearing, sight, smell, touch, taste, and equilibrium. What do you mean by the equilibrium? By the equilibrium, we mean the static position of the individual. In the process of sensation, the incoming afferent nerve impulse is registered in part of the brain which has the potential of such reception. The awareness of stimulus results from the perception of the sensory receptors. The five senses: vision, hearing, auditory sense or audition, also associated with maintenance of bodily balance, smell of olfactions, taste, the skin sensations, kinesthetic sense, touch, pressure, temperature, and these are all things associated with the process of the sensation. Other thing when we talk about is, if we move further, so I explained you in a very detailed about the sensation, and now you can say that our first awareness of some outside stimulus, something external touches the body, so you feel it, and you then your brain can transform that are transformed from the brain into the meaningless bits of information. Why we are saying that sensation is a meaningless? Sensation is a meaningless is because at time of the sensation we don't have a perception. Let for a time being, let imagine that you sensate something, but you cannot give the meanings until and unless you don't have a perception. So the perception is the experience we have after our brain assembles and combines thousands of individual sensations into a meaningful pattern or image. This is very important, that your brain assembles and combines thousands of individual sensations which they makes a meaningful pattern or image. And moving further, changing sensation into perception stimulus change of energy in the environment, such as the light waves, sound waves, mechanical pressures or chemicals. Transduction change physical energy into electrical signals. Electrical signals are changed into impulses that travel into the brain. Impulses from senses first go to different primary areas of the of the brain. Changing sensation into perception, brain association areas. Sensation impulses are sent to the appropriate association area in the brain. Personalized perceptions, each of us has a unique set of personal experiences, emotions, and memories that are automatically added to our perceptions by other areas of the brain. Structuralist versus Gestalt psychologist. Structuralists believe that you add together hundreds of basic elements to form a complex perceptions. Gestalists believe our brain follow a set of rules that specify how individual elements are to be organized into a meaningful pattern or perception. Organizational rules of organization identified by Gestalt psychologists specify how our brains combine and organize individual pieces or elements into a meaningful perception. Figure ground states in organizing stimuli. We tend to automatically distinguish between a figure and ground. Similarity states in organizing stimuli. We group together elements that appear similar. Organizational rules closure states in organizing stimuli. We tend to fill in any missing parts of figure and see the figure as complete. Proximity states in organizing stimuli. We group together objects that are physically close to one another. Simplicity states stimuli are organized in the simplest way possible. Continuity states in organizing stimuli, we tend to favor the smooth or continuous path we when interpreting a series of points or lines. Size, shape, brightness, or color constancy. Size constancy refers to our tendency to perceive objects as remaining the same size even when their images on the retina are continuously growing or shrinking. Shape constancy refers to our tendency to perceive an object as retaining its same shape, even though when we view it from different angles, its shape is continually changing its image on the retina. Size, shape, brightness, and color constancy. Brightness is refers to the tendency to perceive brightness as remaining the same in changing illumination. Color constancy refers to the tendency to perceive colors as remaining stable despite differences in lighting. Depth refers to the ability of eye and brain to add a third dimension, depth, to all visual perceptions, even though images projected on the retina are in only two dimensions, height and width. Binocular depth cues depends on the movement of both eyes. Convergence refers to a binocular cue for depth perception based on signals sent from muscles then that turn the eyes. Retinal disparity refers to binocular depth cue that depends on the distance between the eyes. So this is how you see it. Retinal disparity here. The one is that light sees a slightly different image of the fly. Second, right eye see a slightly different image of the fly. Brain combines the two slightly different images from left and right eyes and give us a perception of depth. This is how you can. Monocular depth cues produced by signals from a single eye, sorry, linear perspective. Monocular depth cue that results as parallel lines comes together. Convergence in the distance. Relative size monocular depth cue that results when we expect two objects to be the same size and they are not. Interposition monocular depth cue that comes into play when objects overlap. Monocular depth cues, light and shadow monocular depth cues where brightly lit objects appear closer while objects in shadows appear further away. Textures, gradient monocular depth cue in which areas with sharp detailed textures are interpreted as being closer and those with less sharpness and poorer detail are perceived as more distant. Monocular depth cues, atmospheric perspective, monocular depth cue that is created by the presence of dust, smoke, clouds, or water vapor. Motion parallax, monocular depth cue based on the speed of moving objects. Strange perceptions, illusions, a perceptual experience in which you perceive an image as being so strangely distorted that in reality it can not and does not exist. Impossible figure, perceptual experience in which a drawing seems to defy basic geometric laws. Uh, so the another thing is the extrasensory perception, a group of psychic experiences that involve perceiving or sending information, images outside normal sensory processes are channels for general abilities, telepathy, ability to transfer one thoughts to another or to read the thoughts of others, precognition ability to foretell events, clairvoyance, uh, clairvoyance, ability to perceive events or objects that are out of sight, psychokinesis, ability to exert mind over matter moving objects. So these are some of the concepts which is related with the sensory chapter and how the perceptions developed and how these things matters are related with the your mindset and how the overall sensory process worked, and this then the sensory process give you uh, linked with the perception, and then this your perception is basically make meanings to the stimuli. For example, someone is touching you, and if you don't have the meaning to that, so you cannot give the which kind of the object is touching you, or which kind of the object is hurting you. So with the perception is basically is worked and give the ability to perceive events and objects, and there's a psycho kinesis is basically the ability to exert mind or matter moving objects. So this is how we can say that. And if you have any questions related to this chapter, so you can ask from me so we can discuss further and we can elaborate it further. Thank you very much. Or if you can have questions, so you can discuss with me. Thank you very much.